Hi Founder fans, wrong channel. Hi Founder fans, Jason here. It's still giving me trouble. I don't know why sometimes YouTube is awful like this. Everything I'm doing is the same as normal, and it is giving me trouble. So I'm going to run through it. Hopefully it works. If not, I can only apologize. Let's go back here. John Parke Custis, reviewing the week very quickly. John Parke Custis was George Washington's stepson, was always a little bit troublesome, does become a member of the House of Burgesses, ends up going to the Battle of Yorktown where he serves as an aide-de-camp to General George Washington, and then, sadly, he catches camp fever and dies just days after Yorktown. Run through them quick. Samuel Latham Mitchill was a really smart person, both a doctor and a author and a lawyer who established the first medical journal, the Medical Repository. He's most famous for trying to change the name of the United States to, and I'll bring this closer, Fredonia. And he wanted us to be Freedons, not Americans, Freedons. He said it was part Latin, part Greek. He seems to have made it up. It was a little bit tongue-in-cheek every time he spoke about it, but he spoke about it a lot and really wanted Americans to, he really wanted this to happen. All right, most of this week was kind of themed, and I think I'm going to start doing this, have the week be a little themed, and then we can have kind of a theme trivia at the end of the week. This week's theme was the Lewis and Clark expedition. Lewis or Clark, Lewis. Meriwether Lewis, he's famous for being a member of the Lewis and Clark expedition. He got that position. He was from rural Georgia, was fortunate enough to have an uncle in Virginia he went and studied under, gets in the right circles, ends up becoming a secretary to Thomas Jefferson. You tell me if it's fixed, Galloway. You tell me. I think so. I made a bunch of changes. It's just sometimes YouTube has its days. But either way, thank you for coming. And we are going to do a lot of fun stuff. So, anyway, Meriwether Lewis, he ends up becoming a personal secretary to Thomas Jefferson during the Jefferson administration. And in fact, after 2 years living with and working with Thomas Jefferson, that's why Meriwether Lewis, who had a little bit of experience during the Whiskey Rebellion, suppressing the rebels, he is chosen to lead this expedition west. He goes out, he gets his old commander, William Clark, to join him as a co-leader. Technically, Clark was a subordinate of Lewis, but he said, Clark, we're buddies, we'll be 1-1. And that's why it's the Lewis and Clark. Their mission is called the Corps of Discovery. They head west. Among the people who head west are York, no image, but there's some statues of him, who was a slave of William Clark, who joins them and is given unprecedented freedoms for an enslaved person. He is made an equal member of the group. He is given the right to vote. He carries a weapon. He is able to go off hunting and on scouting missions all by himself. Could have left, but he stays with the group. Once you're out in the west there's not a lot of options. Goes out with the group. While they're out there, they meet a few people. They meet a gentleman named Toussaint Charbonneau. And Toussaint Charbonneau was a Quebecois fur trader out in North Dakota who had not one but 2 wives. They were both teenage Native American women who either purchased or won in bets, one of whom was named Otter Woman, one of whom was named Sacagawea. Sacagawea obviously has become very famous in American history. She was kind of known as a guide for their travels. Truthfully, she was brought in as an interpreter, though she most assuredly did help guide the Americans along the way. Most notably coming back from the Rocky Mountains. She also was made a member of the team and given a vote. When they got to the Pacific Ocean to choose the camp they were going to stay in, you have both York, an enslaved person, and Sacagawea, a Native American, who are given an equal vote to the white men who have led the mission and been a part of the mission over there. Only 2 of them led the mission. There were a bunch of white dudes who just were along for the ride, essentially. She ends up being really good at using boats. She saves a bunch of paper that Toussaint Charbonneau kind of loses. Not great. They continue along their merry way. When they come back, so Sacagawea was pregnant when they met her. She stays in winter camp with Lewis and Clark. She ends up giving birth to John Baptiste Charbonneau, who ends up becoming a celebrity most of his life and lives a really fascinating life of his own, goes to Europe, goes out to California for a while. He is famous as the baby from the Lewis and Clark expedition. Sacagawea ends up leaving her kid with William Clark, who takes the boy in and educates it. She has another child, also named Toussaint, who ends up going with Clark too. Eventually a daughter who ends up going with Clark. And that's how we know about her. It's fascinating how much of her life we don't know about. In fact, we know her on the travels, and then we know of her a little bit giving the children to William Clark, and then she kind of disappears. In fact, she may have died at 26 years old in North Dakota, or she may have died in her 90s after marrying someone in the Comanche Nation. So, hard to tell. Again, I've made videos and written articles about these earlier in the week, so if you want more information, definitely refer to those. So, she kind of disappears. Now, York, he goes back, and Clark puts him back into slavery. Now, York and Clark were about the same age and grew up together before Clark inherited York, as customs of the time went. And York ends up basically saying, hey, I had this freedom out west. Why am I back in slavery? He also was the only member of the expedition, other than Sacagawea, to have been married beforehand. And he wants to go to Louisville, where his wife lives. He causes a lot of trouble for William Clark. They have a falling out. Clark kind of sends York away from time to time, for lack of a better term. Eventually, York returns, and that is that. No, that's not that. He has a mysterious ending, too. He ends up, rumor had it, this is eventually Washington Irving in the 1830s has become a famous author, and he wants to learn more about the Lewis and Clark expedition, so he goes over and is talking to William Clark and asks about York. And Clark says that York was coming back to see him when he passed away. Now, York had not been in any of the notes we have from William Clark for 30 years. After he was sent off, he was hired out to other people, like intentionally hired to cruel masters to kind of teach him a lesson for being disobedient. Also, it sounds like not a lot of people really cared for York in St. Louis, where Clark was living at that point, although that might have been very much Clark's bias. There are also notes of a black man living with certain Native American nations, and there are several people that this person could have been, one of which might have been York. Now, as for Meriwether Lewis, the initial guy who led this mission, Lewis ends up coming back, kind of being a hero. Everyone's real pumped about him. He is given the honor of becoming territorial governor of Upper Louisiana. There was Southern Louisiana, which is essentially modern Louisiana, and then there was Upper Louisiana. Everything else in the purchase. And Meriwether Lewis was a pretty capable administrator overseeing all this. Unfortunately for Lewis, he had a gentleman named Frederick Bates, who was working as his secretary, who was jealous of his position and wanted to be governor himself. Bates starts writing back to Thomas Jefferson, President Jefferson, who was a friend of Lewis's and a mentor to Lewis, who had pointed Lewis to this position, saying that Lewis is just taking all this government money and spending it on himself and being really selfish. Truth is, Lewis wasn't doing that. He was sending out missions to negotiate peace treaties with local Native American nations and distant Native American nations. But unfortunately, Thomas Jefferson, at a point where Aaron Burr now is being accused of treason, his former vice president, things are not going very well for Jefferson, he gets a little suspicious and he takes this out on Lewis. Now, Lewis wants to prove his worth, and he gets on a boat to sail down the Mississippi and around Florida and up to Washington to explain himself to Jefferson. But strangely, he gets off the boat after just a little bit into his trip. He gets off the boat, walks over, starts traveling by land. He ends up deciding... He finds himself in an inn, he rents a cabin, people see him talking to himself, and then he leaves, and they hear 2 gunshots. 2. They find the body with a gunshot in the stomach, and 1 in the head. And that is the strange death of Meriwether Lewis. Now the question is, why was he shot twice? It was considered a suicide by all those who knew him at the time, and many historians for a while, until historians started reading into it and realized that there was a bunch of money missing he was supposed to have, and why would he shoot himself twice? That's not very efficient, so we don't really know why or how Meriwether Lewis was shot. That is 3 consecutive mysterious endings to members of the famous Lewis and Clark expedition. So, I think that's enough review for today. Why don't we bounce over here and start trivializing our trivia? Yes, I went with it. Nope. We are not going to do that yet. Forgot to take that out there. We're going to put that in the middle. That's going to be fun. Now, I'm going to pop up a question here. Question number 1. Let's see what you know. What did Cato think a president would create under the Constitution? So I didn't really have time, because of the little bit of troubles we're having at the beginning, to go too much into... He wanted to throw off the life insurance policy. Well said, Colonel. Well said. They were starting to have insurance policies back then. Not really life insurance. Now, I've been doing a lot of anti-federalist reviews. I didn't talk about this just now. I was supposed to just finish with this because I was running. Ooh, got a comment on Henrik Fisher. My Henrik Fisher video. That's what that noise was. A leader of New Jersey. I'm probably going to answer this one pretty quick. I didn't get that one. I wasn't here early enough. I didn't talk about this. I was supposed to talk about it at the end. I thought we'd lead right into it. A high court. In Cato number 4 is an anti-federalist paper. He was afraid that when the Senate was home, the president would have minions advising him and other not great people advising him. And heads of state would form a high court. He doesn't use the term high court. That's the way I can describe it. But a ministry, a court. He does use the term court, and he's referencing Great Britain. I wish on the other side there, your information was popping up when you were texting things. That's supposed to happen. Again, trying to do all this cool stuff, it's tough. I will remind you, underneath the screen, you see it says !Continentals. If you type that, for every 5 minutes you watch, you earn 5 Continentals with this new system. So you can type that to see exactly how many Continentals you have. We will have more along the way. Yes, Galloway, you got an ! Continentals. Okay, all lowercase. That'll tell you how much you've earned. There you go. You are popping up at the bottom. That's good. You need the ! At the beginning. Here, look, I'll do it for you. ! I gotta click over here. ! Continentals. That will tell you. Troy, just in time. We've had a lot of problems with YouTube so far. Hopefully it looks good from here on out. All you missed was the weekend review and one question. I'm explaining to everyone to type in the Continentals. Let's see here. Question number 2. What was the name of George Washington's stepson? Huh? What was it? What was his stepson's name? AKA Martha Washington's actual son. As I mentioned earlier, this kid was kind of a disappointment, always a nuisance to his parents, but does serve as an aide-de-camp to George Washington. There it is, Colonel. You got 20 just from watching. All right. This child whose name we're looking for, he ends up serving as an aide-de-camp to George Washington at Yorktown, catches camp fever, as they called it, which was some kind of bilious fever, and he passes away at just 26 years old. Colonel coming through. Jacques Custis Washington. Well, Troy, I'm going to have to say, our friend Colonel is absolutely right. Troy, I feel like you knew what you were saying. You just said a little wrong. I don't think it's just YouTube. A lot of stuff has been screwed today with electronics. There was a CME the other day. It might have been some active today, but I'm not sure. A CME. I mean, I know there were... is that a coronal mass ejection? Is that the sun, the solar flare? Is that what you're referencing? Is that what a CME is? Did I nail it? Let me know. I know that happened the other day. And you're right, actually. We've been having strange problems here, too. Yes, I got it. Well done, Galloway. All right, next question. Let's see if I can hit it. Okay, what did Samuel Latham Mitchill want to name the United States? I just briefed over Samuel Latham Mitchill. I should get a continental. Thank you, Troy. Samuel Latham Mitchill. A really fascinating guy. He kind of misses a good portion of the Revolution because he's overseas. He comes back. He's a physician and a lawyer. He starts the first medical journal, the Medical Repository. He goes over to he's one of the founders of teaches at Columbia for a while, aka King's College. Then helps found the College of Physicians and Surgeons, which ends up being absorbed into Columbia. He then writes a whole wide variety of really important papers. He's a hard founder to write about because his story is so wide. He's one of those really educated people who influenced the other founders, but didn't really do a lot himself. But he kept writing this one name, and people are getting it. Whammy. Fredonia. You guys pretty much got it. Yes, Fredonia. He wanted us to be Freedons. Not great. Not great. Yes, he wanted to rename it Fredonia, which actually is a town in New York State. My wife went to Fredonia State University, so we are familiar with it here. Let's pop up another question. Okay, as you've seen, it is Lewis and Clark week. What was the name of the unit that Lewis and Clark led to the Pacific Ocean? AKA, what was the name of the military thing created for this particular journey? Yeah, it has a fair ring to it, Galloway. I'll give you that. Sure, man. Fredonia sounds cool, but Freedons doesn't sound so cool. But it's interesting, as I said in my article, my video, like my spouse went to Fredonia, and it's a good reminder of how things that the American founders did still very actively affect us today. That I don't have it, she has. I have Oneonta shirts. She has Fredonia hoodies around the house. And it's just because this random founder happened to say it. We got Troy coming through with an answer. Core of Discovery. Bammy. Corpse. I think this is actually pronounced corpse, not core. I can never figure it out. Galloway, pretty much right. I like it. I like it. Now. Okay, let's do one more question here. What office was Meriwether Lewis given after his service in the Corps of Discovery? So after Lewis and Clark do their Lewis and Clarking, they go hang out over on the Pacific for a tidbit. They come back. Meriwether Lewis is then awarded a very high office when it comes to the Western frontier from President Thomas Jefferson. What was his title? I need to get some cool music. I was speaking to a friend of mine, actually, who records music, about getting some like theme music to maybe play in the background. Let me know if there's any revolutionary songs you'd like a modern interpretation of to be playing quietly in the background while we rock through trivia. Okie dokie. I'm also going to try something out. While you guys are answering this question, Troy, you're not wrong. You're not right, but you're not wrong. Let's see if anyone else gets a little guess in here. I am gonna try something out. I think it's Continentals space add 10 viewers. Let's see if that gives you guys all 10 points. I'm trying to remember what I was supposed to remember. Yes, okay, Galloway's kind of got it too. It is Governor of Upper Louisiana. It would later be known as the Missouri Territory, but at first it was called Upper Louisiana because it was half of the Louisiana Purchase. There was Lower Louisiana, which was basically Louisiana, a little bit of Arkansas, a little bit of Mississippi. Good night, guys. You have a good night's sleep. They always want to pop in and say hi. Looks like my Continentals thing didn't. Yes, Jeremy. It ends up becoming the Missouri Territory. So you're not wrong, but it's not the exact precise title that we're going for. Now, guys, here it is. One of the new games. We're going to do a heist. I am going to rename it to Heist. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to type heist. I got to click over here. Okay, I got to get used to that. Exclamation point. Heist 10. Now, did I spell it right? I spelled it wrong on the screen. It's spelled, I will correct it. I just typed in heist. Now, it says, oh, did it not say, oh man, I put in a whole Lexington and Concord thing. I guess it didn't save. I'm going to fix it. Again, guys, we're in kind of like the beta phase. There, that's how you spell heist. We're in the beta phase of this new version of Founder of the Day. So I called together the militia. I need you guys, Troy's typing in to see how many he got. Troy's got a lot. If you type in exclamation point heist and then any number, doesn't have to be 10, but I would say start with 10, you can join our heist. For whatever reason, it's doing the pirate bank robbery again. Even though I really took the time to put in Lexington and Concord information, I suppose I didn't save it. I could probably look right now and be like, oh, you didn't save it, did you? Did you save it? Let's see. No. I didn't save it, and it's too late to put it in now. But next week we'll be calling out the militia to attack Lexington and Concord. So, let's see. Troy, join. Oh, it's just me. Oh, there was only a minute to jump in. Did he also appoint as secretary to the president by? Yes. Okay, so just so you guys know, the Minutemen part did work. But the first, try and get together and I changed it for, I didn't change it for George Washington. Very weird. Okay, so none of you guys joined me on the heist. So Colonel, he actually was appointed as secretary to President Jefferson before he went on the expedition west. That was kind of his way in. He made a few friends in high places, became secretary to Jefferson for 2 years, and then that's why Jefferson chose him to go across the way. Oh, is it because... Okay, I think the problem is I typed in heist, and one of you guys have to lead the way. Now, there's a few minute cooldown. We'll come back and try again later. Well, let's bounce over to another question. Name one of the 3 people who joined the Corps of Discovery in North Dakota. When Lewis and Clark get to North Dakota, they meet some people, and 3 of them join the group temporarily. One of them doesn't really go on the trip with them, but 2 of them do. But name one of the 3 people that Louis and Clark meet in North Dakota. Troy, Sacagawea, pretty good guess. Spelled wrong. I spelled it a lot this week. Just so you know, Sacagawea can be spelled one of 3 ways. S-A-C-A-G with a J and with 2 Ks. Sacagawea, Sacagawea. The most common spelling, and I am saying it a lot, so I will put that up there. Sacagawea with a G is the most common spelling. But the pronunciation with a J is becoming more common, and her initial tribe, the Northern Shoshone tribe, or Shoshone tribe, would probably have pronounced it with a J sound. So that, Toussaint Charbonneau, the man who married her when she was a teenager, and he probably bought her, and Otter Woman, Toussaint Charbonneau's first wife. So Sacagawea was one of 2 wives for this gentleman. Very interesting. Yes, her husband Toussaint. Yes, Toussaint Charbonneau, I believe it's pronounced Charbonneau. Great. And Otter Woman. Well, this is a fun question. What enslaved person was given unprecedented freedom as a member of the Corps of Discovery? Again, the Corps of Discovery, the Lewis and Clark journeys west. Who was the enslaved person who went along with them? Also, the only person who was actually married beforehand. They specifically chose people who had not yet gotten married to go on the Lewis and Clark journey, in case they died. But this is the one person who was actually married beforehand. I see one answer coming in. Anyone else, pop in here. I'll give you a few seconds. Not just going to leave it to Colonel. Take a sip. Water from my cool Betsy Ross flag stylized cup. If you want one, check out the merch link down in the description below. Put out a bunch of hashtag AmRev stuff this week, too. I should have put that out there. Let's see. We got a few answers coming in, and they mostly seem to be right. They seem right. York. York was William Clark's slave. When they went on the trip, they said, we're all in this together. York was able to vote with 1 equal vote to everyone else, as was Sacagawea when they met up. It's really interesting. When they get to the Pacific Ocean, which technically was trespassing on Spanish territory, they go to the Pacific Ocean, and you have a black man and a Native American woman, and everyone has 1 vote. And they all decide, they vote on where do we camp. It's really interesting. There was also a beached whale that Sacagawea called a monstrous fish she was very interested in. Okay, blasting through here, really having a great old time. This has nothing to do with any of the articles I wrote this week. It's a fun question I wanted to ask. Who was the first lady of the United States? Martha Washington, Dolly Madison, or Sarah Livingston Jay? First I heard of him was Founder of the Day this week. That was the first you heard of York? Well, I'm glad I could bring him to your attention, Troy. He's a really important hero. His story is very sad, of course, especially afterwards when William Clark puts him back into slavery, and then he just gives Clark a ton of trouble because he's experienced freedom and wants it. Colonel, Martha Washington, come on. Okay, come at me. Lorne, hi Lorne. Welcome to the party. I like Lauren's answer. I'll say that. Lauren's seen my shows before. I'm going to wait. I'm going to give Troy an answer. Troy, what do you think? Break this tie here. Break this tie here. Galloway, if you're still here too. Anyone popping in? Break the tie. Is it Martha Washington, Dolly Madison, or Sarah Livingston Jay? I'm going to bring one thing up real quick while I'm waiting for your answers. Streamlabs chatbots. I am looking up how to give you guys money. I know there was a way. There it is. Please tell me very easily. What do we got here? Oh, I guess the heist is over. You know you love Jay so much. All right. Thank you, Lauren. So here's what I believe is the correct answer. All of them. I know that's a cop-out. So, listen, hear me out. First of all, the answer is Martha Washington. Okay, legitimately, the physically correct answer is Martha Washington. She was George Washington's wife, and George Washington was the first president. She was the first lady. Dolly Madison is up there because she's the first lady to kind of act in the way we understand a first lady to act right now. No, that's fine, Colonel. You don't have to. And someone left. Someone's very angry at me. Dolly Madison was the first person to act in the way we understand a first lady to act. Basically today, she was the figurehead of society at the time. At a time when politics was at the dinner table. Literally dinner table politics. That's when they got the best work done. And the hostess was a very important part of society. Now, of politics. Now, the reason Sarah Livingston Jay is up there is because when the American Revolution is happening, after the war, in the late 1780s, under the Articles of Confederation, there are only two federal officials. Really, there's a court, but it's a court of appeals. It's the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the Minister of War. And that is Henry Knox, Minister of War, and John Jay, the Minister of Foreign Affairs. He's in New York. That's where the Continental Congress is meeting. His wife is a Livingston. I know the play Hamilton really blows up the Schuyler family, and I'm sorry to say this, but the Schuyler sisters wish they were a Livingston. If I could put into any context at all, they wished they were a Livingston. So, Sarah Livingston Jay is the figurehead of society when New York City is the capital before the Washingtons arrive, while the Constitution is being debated in New York City, while her spouse is writing some of the Federalist Papers. Once the Constitution is ratified, as George and Martha Washington show up, Sarah Livingston Jay is already running the scene and already has this list she's kept, which is one of the most important documents of the Revolution, a list of dinner guests. It is a who's who of American founders. She set up the political society of New York when the nation was founded. Does she count? No. From my perspective, absolutely. She was absolutely the first lady in all but name of the United States. Now I'll get off my high horse now. I don't accept. Okay, it would be Sally if Washington could have pulled it off. Sally Fairfax would have been the first lady had Washington had his way. Oh, that's an interesting turn of events, Misfit. Sally Fairfax. That's a great reference. Yes, that was the young woman that Washington did want to marry, but that didn't quite happen. Schuyler wished they were Livingstons. Oh, now you've... Yeah. It's funny, the Broadway play Hamilton, if you haven't listened to it, I've only seen it on Disney, but you should listen to it. Even if you don't like musicals, a lot of it's kind of sappy musical stuff, but a lot of it's really cool American Revolution songs, which you don't get all the time. And they really, the best thing about Hamilton is how many young people it's turned on to the American Revolution. So many people. Probably not since the movie The Patriot has any piece of media really turned a lot of people onto American history. That being said, the Schuyler Sisters were cool and all. And I'm actually planning on doing some live reviews of the lyrics of the songs. I can't play the songs, but I'm thinking about doing some live videos where I review the songs to talk about the music, like the lyrics and what they're saying. Because there's a lot of fun information about the Schuyler Sisters there, but there's a lot of like wildly wrong information, which isn't fair to some people in the Revolution. But listen, the Schuylers were really running upstate New York, yes. But the Livingstons ran New York City and everything in between. That is kind of opinion, but whatever. Well, I'll tell you what, Colonel, you want to talk about dueling? Let's see if it works. Probably won't work. I probably didn't save it. But if you type !duel and then, let's say, Troy Malisapino, you can challenge him to a duel in the comments, and Troy can accept it, and one of you will win some Continentals and the other won't. And vice versa. Troy, you can challenge Colonel. Lauren, if you're still here. Lauren, if you're just popping in, I know you missed a few. So the new game in the comments is still being, the kinks are being worked out, but it is a lot of fun. It will be. Someone show him. Troy, try it out. While we're doing that, let's do another query here. Okay, let's see if it works. That should work. We'll give it a second. Okay. Colonel wants you to duel. You can accept or deny within 2 minutes. So, Troy, if you do ! accept. I think you have to ! accept is actually what you type, not her name. Yeah. Troy, you're not ready to duel? Well, if you type, Troy, if you type ! Continentals, like it says on the screen below, or in the middle, it will tell you how much you've earned over the course, just from watching live videos. Oh, feels good, man. All right. I'm not sure what feels good, man is, but Troy, you have, you've won. Congratulations. Thank you for defending my honor. Sarah Livingston J is officially the First Lady of the United States. Sorry, Colonel. Nice try. There is a question on the screen. Again, unrelated to anything we've discussed this week, but another important question. This one's more serious than the last one. Who was the primary author of the Articles of Confederation? This is not technically one of the big six, as many of you know I like to call the Washington, Adams, Jefferson, Hamilton, Madison, Franklin, big six. Not one of the big six, but certainly one of the big 10. Let's see it. Let's see what you guys got. Troy, 'tis but a scratch, coming out with the Monty Python references. So, yeah, put this up there. Also, let me know, can you guys read what you're saying on the side there? The other side, there's your comments are popping up. You know, let me know. I'm probably going to change some of the screen a little bit, probably make myself a little bigger. I want you to see if you guys can read that. These are amazing answers. So the answer is John Dickinson. Despite very briefly serving in the Continental Congress thereafter, because about this time Dickinson didn't sign the Declaration of Independence because he thought there should be another government ready to go. When you threw one government off, you should have another one hanging out there. Josiah Bartlett's a really fun guest, New Hampshire guy. No, but the president in the West Wing was named Josiah Bartlett after that very character. And Lauren Franklin's a great guest. He was there. He was advising Dickinson on this, but at the time, Franklin was more concerned with the certain things like the committee of the secret committee, which was corresponding with Silas Deane, France. He himself would get ready to go over to Europe, and the Navy and the war itself was consuming Franklin at that point. Ben Franklin's always a good guest, though. All right, and we'll round out it with our last question of the night. Who was the only other member of the Washington family who had a major impact on the American Revolutionary War? Other than George, who was the only one to have a major impact on the Revolution? And here's a hint that won't help you. It's tomorrow's founder. Yeah, doesn't help, does it? But it'll help next week when we'll talk a little bit more about him. And a very interesting weapon. Okay, we'll see. Waiting to see. Last question. This is a tough one. Again, we haven't discussed it yet. Total surprise. Tomorrow's founder is the answer to this question. Good luck with that, mon frere. Let's see. His brother Dave. No. So as I said earlier, no, Custis did not have a major impact. Custis showed up at the beginning as an aide-de-camp in Boston, and at the end as an aide-de-camp at Yorktown. It was a good guess. It's a very good guess. But not nearly the type of impact as this second cousin of George Washington. We will do a heist when we finish up. Last thing we're going to do is a heist. Again, so as I said, this week was kind of Lewis and Clark themed. Next week is going to be Washington family themed. So he didn't have a brother Dave, Lauren, but he had several siblings. And we are going to be talking about them this week, and they will be some answers next week. It's George Washington Family Week. I was going to wait till February for Washington, President's Day, but I want to do it now. Come on, what are we waiting for? Martha's husband, Custis, without his death, Sally is first lady. I mean, that's a super bold claim, because didn't Sally Fairfax ignore Washington before Martha came around? If I'm getting my things right. Fielding Lewis. Okay, we're way off. It seems like this is too tough a question. You guys want the answer? I mean, at least Lauren guessed a real first name. Granted, they would have gone by David back then. But anyone coming in, a few people just popping in, and I would be happy if one of the people came in for the last question to give us a correct answer. The only other one to take a real active part in the warfare. There was another Bushrod Washington, who would go on to be on the United States Supreme Court. He's the only other Washington to have a real important effect on the federal government. Who is this? Yeah, she did. I know you're kidding, Troy. We're having fun here. We're having fun here. Making Monty Python jokes and whatnot. All right, I'm going to give it a countdown. 5, 4. He was a cavalry officer. He was technically a dragoon, which is like cavalry, but instead of remaining on your horse during the battle, the dragoons got off their horse to fight because they wore heavy equipment, so the horse carried them around, and they wouldn't get exhausted until they were in the fight. Also, Colonel, the first name starts with a W. He fought at Eutaw Springs. He was injured there. His number 2 in command, he joined the war at just 23 years old. His number 2 in command was a gentleman named James Monroe. And by gentleman, I mean 17-year-old boy, James Monroe. They would both be wounded at Trenton, which most people weren't wounded. They would leave. He would end up becoming important in the Southern Department, fighting most battles in the Southern Department, was very trusted by Daniel Morgan. Fought at, like I said, Eutaw Springs. Most major battles there, and he would later move, though a Virginian, move to South Carolina, and he would actually be recommended as a run for governor. But he thought that you should be born in a state if you were going to be its governor. No one seeming to get it. I am going to pop it up here. William Washington. Willie Wash-a-lot. There it is. Oh, Colonel, you know what? I'm like a few seconds ahead of you, so I will give you that. You just got it. I will. I'm assuming you went and looked it up, but fair enough. At least you put in the effort. I really appreciate it. All right, guys. All righty then. Let's go back and do one more fun heist. Now, I'm not going to start this one. I think I'm what screwed it up when I started. So, one of you guys type exclamation point heist and then the number you'd like to wager. Exclamation point heist space 10 is a good place to start. Okay, someone popped it up. Okay, Colonel's got it going. Let's see. Is George Washington going to come out and get us going here? Let's see. There he is. Oh, Troy did it too. Oh, Colonel, you forgot to type in a number you're betting. Because what happens in the heist is you bet a number and then you try and win more. But you might lose some. Who knows? There it is, Colonel. You got it. So Troy's trying to get a team together. I don't know why it's still saying the bank thing, but here we go. The British are coming. Captain Troy is calling together the militia. Heist. Are you guys seeing? I don't know why. So Streamlabs is the company I use. I don't know why George Washington is not the one saying it. George Washington Bot said something wrong. I don't know. I don't know why. Should I be... Maybe I should be under George Washington Bot? Okay, so what happens now, I put it at a minute. So it's going to take a minute to give everyone time to jump in. So Colonel, I think you're in because you did Heist 10. Troy's in. Lauren, if you want to just type exclamation point, Heist 10, you can come on in. We're going to battle. Anyone else joining us a little bit late, feel free. You earn these points, these continentals, that's what you're betting, that number there, just by watching the video. Now, there are ways I can give them out. Obviously, I've given them out. But there are other ways you can... we will be adding a lot of games on this channel. I will be adding a stream boss, probably King George III, who you guys can eliminate in various ways. Things of that nature. There it is, Lauren. Oh, Lauren, you got in just a little late. The Minutemen have rallied and are on their way to Lexington. Gage wins. Troy does not save America. Sorry, Troy. There is no America. Now, I am not entirely sure why it didn't bring... Lauren got in a little late. That's why he missed it. I'm not sure why Colonel didn't get in. What I understand is this particular program I'm using for George Washington Bot, it takes a few times, 5 or 6 times, to like really figure out our stream. Yeah, the crew got wiped out. Looks like the police knew they were coming. I don't know why that's... Okay. I will make sure to edit this and fix it all up. Don't you worry. Now, Troy said, speaking of the Patriot, many covered its inaccuracies. How about what they got right? Clothing, furniture, history, etc. Interesting. All right, so trivia is pretty much done. I'll wrap up with some questions. I don't know. I have... So, a while ago, I put on Twitter, a few years ago, I tweeted out, like, what do people think about this particular film? And the response I got was really encouraging. So, like most cinema or theater or anything like that, when you are recounting history, you can take artistic licenses. Sometimes you have to take artistic license to squeeze something down to 2 hours. People criticize the Patriot a lot because that person never really existed. Mel Gibson's character never really existed. Heath Ledger's handsome young man never really existed. They were an amalgamation of several different people that were brought together to make a movie. Now, that being said, many of the actions that they take did happen. I don't want to... I forget who it is, but it's like they took like some Daniel Morgan, some Francis Marion, some this person and that person, probably some William Washington, and put them all together to make a fun story. On top of that, you're right. They got a ton right. The period atmosphere is great. The clothes, like you said, Lauren, the clothing, furniture, all this stuff. Truthfully, what I've found is that not that many people actually talk trash about the Patriot for its historical inaccuracy. Most people seem to understand it, and as I said before, it got a lot of people into it. You know, I saw the Patriot as a teenager, probably. Came out a long time ago, right? Mid-teens, late teens. And that was about the time I went on a trip with my family to Williamsburg. And those are the things that brought me into this particular time frame of history. It's why I like the play Hamilton so much. I mean, the music itself is very good. But it's brought so many younger people into the study of American Revolutionary history and history in general that it's certainly done more good than harm. Now, I know a lot of people don't care for musicals, and I understand that. I do. I hung out with the musical crowd. In high school, I dated one of the theater nerds, so I hung out with that group. And as someone living on Long Island, I traveled to see shows on Broadway pretty frequently, so I got to see the best. So I'm fortunate in that fashion. So sue me. But if you haven't listened to it, I haven't done it yet. I got to go on Spotify and make up a list of tracks. Because, of course, some of them are like emotional theater songs. It is a 2.5-hour play that's almost 100% music the whole way through. But there are a bunch of songs on there, like especially the second act, where they're talking about the Washington administration. There's just no other piece of media, be it movie or TV show or anything else, that really has analyzed the Washington administration as well as this play. to be fair, there are obviously books out there. Shout out to Dr. Lindsay Travinsky, friend of the show, who wrote The Cabinet. So if you want to learn about the Washington administration, that's the book you read. But first of all, I know people don't love theater. Not everyone loves hip-hop. They put them together to do rap battles for the Washington administration. But it's Jefferson and Hamilton arguing about what Jefferson and Hamilton argued about during the Washington administration, boiled down to quick clips. I can't recommend it enough. I was just listening to it today. I cannot recommend it enough. That being said, like I was mentioning earlier, they do some people a disservice, particularly John Barker Church. There's one line, I'm probably going to do a few live episodes where I talk about the lyrics in the play, or musical. People get mad at me when I call it a play, because there's a line where Angelica Schuyler says, I have a wealthy husband. He is not a lot of fun, but. And that's just not true. Angelica Schuyler's husband he came to America escaping debts, lived under an assumed identity when he got married. He met her while he was investigating her father, Philip, for his efforts as one of the ranking major generals in the Continental Army. So dad didn't like it. They were of Dutch descendancy, so actually it was the mother's role to approve a husband. So they eloped and moved to France, and then a few years later sent word back, by the way, our last name is actually Church. So that bugs me. Yes. Colonel, it's the fandom that has ruined it for me. Oh, I'm not sure why you say that. Okay, George Washington Bot is losing his mind now. He's just off doing his own thing. Okay, George Washington Bot. I'm not sure if you're actually seeing... Are you actually seeing what George Washington Bot has to say? Because I don't see it in YouTube. I only see it up here at this other section. So let me know if you see George Washington Bot being all over the place. Dude was living a double life. Yeah, he was fun. Hi, Jason. Oh, TJ. Yeah. Oh, well, thanks for listening. Next time, play along. We don't mind if you eat dinner while you're playing. It's fine. I'm always gargling my water over here, getting in my stash. You're not seeing anything from George Washington Bot. Interesting. So I can control him. I'll type hi. We'll see if George Washington Bot comes up there. But... Well, thank you for letting me know. He's the one who's supposed to be instructing these games. I made a whole, fake YouTube page just to come into the chat and do games. Okay, there it is. When I type his name, it comes up. Or when I type under as him. Oh, Georgie Wash-a-lot. Okay, I'll figure it out. It's going to be cool when it's done. The duels will be cool. Whole bunch of stuff. It's just very time... Problem is, it's very time-consuming, and I'm already... have to publish an article and make a video every single day of the week, in addition to the Federalist Papers I've been reading through. Thanks for everyone who comes to that. Troy, $2,000 for tickets. Yeah, and you're in, California, right? So, touring company shouldn't be that much. Unfortunately, it was supposed to come to Syracuse, and it didn't, because the, plague, which is beat. That being said... it's on Disney Plus, so watch it there. It's interesting. So I made a video at one point just based on the music, because that's all I had for several years. And it was, hey, what happened to John Lawrence? It seems that John Lawrence has one 30-second song that doesn't make it to the soundtrack for whatever reason. The only thing they exclude from the soundtrack is John Lawrence's death. So I made a video about what really happened to John Lawrence, why he's not in the second act, and I just had so many people talking trash. I don't want to take it down because it's right, the information's right, but everyone just comes and watches it and hates on me for being he's in the second act. It's well, now that the video's out. Cool. Yeah, if you guys have any more questions, I'll be happy to answer them before we go. Other than that, just wrapping it up. William Washington tomorrow. It's going to be Washington week. We're going to talk about William Washington. We're going to talk about Bushrod Washington, who might have been... I'll have to put a link to the video. Oh, no worries, Lauren. Well, thank you so much. And I want to give a big shout out to several of the people here who support the channel over on Patreon. I've been draining money into Founder of the Day for several years, and your small... generous contributions certainly go a long way in offsetting many of the costs. The emails cost me $30 a month just to send out. The hosting cost me like $20 a month on the website. So really, it's amazing. Enjoyed all the expedition things this week. All right, excellent. Well, thank you, Troy. Thank you, Lauren, TJ, Colonel, in no particular order, of course. Galloway, you probably left by now, but thanks for coming. Anyone watching but not participating, of course, it's fun. You know what, Lauren, would it be, if I did some more stuff on the weekends, would that be more accommodating? Because I was thinking about doing some more stuff on Sundays, a live video here or there. People seem to like it, but football. And I know people might be watching football. Although I guess you could put the sound on a video at that time. Excuse me. So with that, I'm going to sign off. I've combined weekend review with trivia up to this point. So I have 2 sign-offs for one show. So Peacefield, Round Bottom. I'm Jason. Thank you guys so much, especially for your patience at the beginning where I had those problems. Thank you so much for your input and feedback with the new changes to trivia. It helps me tremendously, and the better I make it, the more people will come play. I think a lot of these changes will attract more of an audience. There are hundreds, literally hundreds of people have popped into trivia and left real quick. So I think I'm making these changes. Well, hopefully they'll stick around and play with us. So thank you for sticking around when it's not perfect and helping me form a more perfect Founder of the Day union, so to speak. I am out of here. What is the word? What is the sign off? Peacefield? Round bottom. Round bottom. It's not working. Why is it? Oh, because I'm clicked over on. Because I'm clicked on George Washington over here. I need to be clicked on this screen. I could say round bottom, press the button, and I go away. See ya.